Madame Lagarde, for your introduction. So, hello everybody, and a very warm welcome to you all at the IMF. I'm Sabina Bhatia of the Communications Department, and I'm delighted that you are all here. So, over the next 30 minutes, we are going to explore the story of a remarkable young woman in the field of STEM, which, as you know, stands for Science, Technology, Engineering, and Math. And we're going to discover the power of learning and that, yes, girls too can reach for the stars, literally. I'm referring, of course, to Sabrina Gonzalez Pasterski. She's a PhD student at Harvard University, and she's taking the world of physics by storm. So as we saw in the video, at the age of 14, she was building a plane in her parents' garage. I don't know what's happening in your garages. It's not happening in mine. Okay? And now, 10 years later, she is doing pioneering work in the field of quantum gravity. So why is that important? Her research could potentially transform our understanding of space and the universe we live in. So please join me in giving a very warm welcome to Sabrina. So, Sabrina, yes. Let's start from the beginning. Okay. You grew up in Chicago, yes. Right? What school did you go to, and what were your hobbies?
Sure. So I grew up in Chicago, like actually the city proper, and I went to Chicago public school system. So it was Edison. They had fun sound effects. They had like a gifted program. So like the nice thing about a large school system like Chicago public schools is that they have different types of schools, and our school is cool because it busts people in from all over the city. And it was K through 8, and that's when I started building the kit at home near that school. And then I went to a high school that was math and science that was in Aurora, and that was a boarding school that Illinois actually has, like, is state funded, so you pay whatever, like a minimal amount for food and board, and so that's kind of my growing up education experience.
Okay. And so what got you interested in STEM?
I was always interested in like aerospace engineering. So I was hoping when I was little that I would like design rocket ships one day. Like that was, as a kid, that's what I kind of like looked up to. And so kind of thinking like along the lines of what could I do now that would show that I could make a step in that direction was start taking flying lessons. You can actually fly with a certified flight instructor at any age as long as they're willing to fly with you. Logging dual at Milwaukee Airport, which is now Chicago Executive, near Chicago, and basically that one thing led to another, and it was trying to get closer to this dream of working for an aerospace company. So flight lessons, and then building a kit plane.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you make it sound so simple that, you know, and you started building your plane at age 12.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Now most kids at 12 are playing soccer and tennis and, you know, that sort of stuff. So how did you decide to build a plane?
Well, I wasn't very good at soccer or tennis.
Okay.
But so actually it happened where I wrote an essay for this like Chicago aviation essay competition back when I was like, so this was 12, but before I started building the kit. And I won a trip to Maui on American Airlines. I was super excited about that. But the person that I wrote about was essentially, so I was 9, and you'd have to be 17 years old to get a pilot's license. And for me, that sounded like way too far in the future as a 9-year-old, you know, like doubling your life almost, not quite, to get to the stage where you're actually going to be able to fly around without a sign-off. So I was inspired by this aerobatic pilot, Jamal Larkins, who had flown solo in Canada. So 14 is the age when you can fly by yourself in a like powered aircraft in Canada instead of 16 in the U.S. And like that seemed like a lot sooner. So I started taking lessons there. But I wrote this essay inspired by him, and I won it. And then after the people in the FAA who were judging this like decided that I could actually get to meet this guy who had inspired me. So they set up this Young Eagles flight, and even though I had already taken flight lessons, I got to fly the FAA administrator when I was 12 with Jamal at this Oshkosh Air Show event. And this event is pretty much basically a lot of kit building. So like building an airplane from a kit is a thing. A lot of people do it, and there's this community of builders that kind of come together every year at Oshkosh. And one of the people who kind of was like managing this flight that I got to take suggested that I could actually build a kit too. And so even though most of the builders are a lot older than me, like that became a thing. Like to me, something like, oh, I could do that. And then I went to my high school that I wanted to go to, and was like, oh, look, I just won the FAA administrator, I'm taking flight lessons, and this one math teacher was like not impressed, or said like, you know, you're because like, I mean, like it's like driving, but a little bit younger, so flying is just something I was fortunate to be able to take the lessons, you know, and sure, you can handle like potentially dangerous equipment, that's good, but like in some point in the future, what would it be? And that was when I got to build this kit, and I was very fortunate that we had like a family car, a Corvette that we could just sell, so I could like pay for this kit, and started that.
So how old were you when you first flew a plane?
So I flew with a flight instructor from 9 years old, like for like a while. Basically, I flew most of the time like at 9 out of Milwaukee, and then when I learned I could solo at 14, I started transitioning to going to first London, Ontario, but mostly Sarnia, Ontario. So just a little bit across the border, Michigan. And I flew by myself there at 14, and then my first U.S. solo was in the kit plane that I built.
Which was when? How old
That
were
was,
you?
I was 16, so that you have to be 16 to fly by yourself in a powered airplane in the U.S.
I'm not sure how many in the audience have 16-year-olds, but most of us worry about our children getting behind the wheel on the road,
But it's
not
probably
in the
more
sky.
I mean, there's more traffic, right? So if you're not, I'm sure you think your kid can drive a car. The question is like, who else is on the road with them? And when you're flying, I mean, especially if you're flying out of a towered airport, you have somebody basically looking out for you, and you have like much more spacing between you and the most dangerous like thing you're nearby. So except for the ground if you're not very good. So but you're assuming that you can drive a car like on a racetrack, which I'm sure like everybody who like would trust their kid could be good at that if they practice and train. It's if anything a little bit safer. I mean, I would think. I mean, just because
to fly than to drive.
If you could just assume that you know how to operate the equipment that you have,
right,
and then you don't have to deal with anybody else, and like the time frame over which you react to things is kind of a bit slower because it's not like intersection someone's going to come with a bicycle or anything like that. It's very different. Like you're preparing to approach and whatnot. I mean, if anything, I think it's probably is safer.
No.
I mean, aside from standing near props and stuff like that, you get to be a little bit aware of things like that are spinning and cut you up. That like that's only outside the airplane.
Okay, well, I don't know how many parents are going to encourage their children to fly instead of drive, but we'll see. But thank you for that. So do you still fly?
Not as much. So I want to go back to it. But basically, as soon as I graduated from high school, I went out to MIT, and it seemed like it would be a pain to, first of all, I'd have to get insurance, and I would be on this airplane that the kit I built ended up being dangerous. Like, so people actually had crashed in similar kits after I'd started building, but before I would have been flying the Cessna probably, but I still needed to have it insured as like a pilot or on this airplane. And so it seemed like it would be rather expensive to have it at Hanscom Air Force Base near where I was in school. And so essentially, I didn't end up getting a full license because I turned 17 and went to MIT.
Okay.
But I want to get back to that. I really do.
All right, that's good to know. So just turning now to your academic career.
Yeah.
So you then decided to apply for college for a degree in physics. Is that right?
So the nice thing about MIT and Harvard is you can just apply to go to those schools. You don't have to worry about like I'm going to do this for the rest of like the next 4 years and the rest of my life. Pretty much, you're making that decision. And so I thought I was going to go into aerospace engineering, and I did like a couple of internships. One was like a little January term at Kennedy Space Center with some seniors and juniors in aerospace engineering. And then over the summer I worked at Boeing. But then I figured like I actually wanted to do physics. So one thing I like about MIT is you're basically required to take a lot of different science courses. And so I was the type where I always wanted to do well in school, which is like I'm sure there's a lot of people who are like that. But it's nice when there's like a class where it's a little bit easier, like it's natural to you. And so physics was like that. And so I like kind of like I liked it. It liked me a little bit, and I went that direction. But like. Yeah, I mean, I also at the time, because I had this airplane, and I thought, like, I'm going to get into college. Like, yeah, right, I have this cool project, and I have good grades, what's going to go wrong? And I applied to, like, Harvard and MIT only, and I, like, did not get into these schools. So as much as, like, I planned.
Into either or Harvard?
I got rejected from Harvard, and I got waitlisted at MIT.
And you applied to 2 schools? Wow.
I mean, it is a little bit, I mean, the funny thing about it, though, so basically, like, one of the things they were showing was this, like, cover on the Tribune, and I think I had good grades, so I got in this, like shortlist for this all-state academic team thing, and I think the fact that like it was like if I like get on this cover, I will maybe like help my chances of getting into like college this year. Maybe that played a role or not, but that definitely helped to have people. So when you're on the wait list, you can fight to get into a place by not like fighting, like saying you're wrong, but more like this is what I've been doing since then. So it was an interesting dynamic when everybody else has like senioritis in your high school, and you're like, I might not go to college next year. I might have to like do some sort of like independent project or something for a year. I don't know what. But it's a different experience when like the day before your prom you get into undergrad instead of like like a couple months before. Then,
okay, so that's a good lesson on how to face setbacks, is to fight back. And
well, I mean, so that was, yeah, I guess, so what happened there is because basically when I went to MIT, I was like the underdog in the sense that, or at least I thought I was, like everybody else here got in like way before me, so I'm at the bottom, I got to show something. So I liked doing well in school because of that, so I had a like chip on my shoulder. And physics was like a nice, fun challenge that yeah.
And then you went from success to success, because I understand you were the first woman in 20 years to graduate at the top of your undergrad program with a GPA of 5.0.
So within physics, I was this, well, no, but you see, this is the part where it's like you literally, you're like the last person let into this class. Like you were like the lowest of like, it's like a pretty good, awesome class, but like you're still at the bottom. And so you want to like show something. And I guess the fun thing about, like, in hindsight, it's not like grades really matter. It's, for me, they helped me a lot. But I think that there was this drive to show that I wasn't like the last one you'd want to let into this class. Like, and so I ended up like getting like perfect grades, whatever, and then that was enough to be like whatever Orloff for physics. But yeah,
that's amazing. And then from MIT, Harvard was literally a hop, skip, and a jump for you.
Yeah, but see, this is the part where I had applied to those two schools and wanted to go to those two schools and never got into the other one until grad school. So it kind of was like, I want to go to the other one now, and just went a little bit down the Charles, yeah.
Yeah, and so there you had a string of successes because you were granted academic freedom in 2015 by your tutor, Andrew Strominger. So that, can you just explain to us what academic
so basically,
freedom means?
I had spent a thing where I spent 3 years in my undergrad instead of 4 years because I could put the courses in and graduate early. And when you go to grad school, they pay for you to go to grad school. So it was like my parents will owe less money and like the loans that they borrow, even though the interest will still accrue. So I essentially was looking forward to, I was always doing things really quickly in some sense. Like I spent like a long time in elementary school, and then it was a 3-year high school program because that school already didn't have a freshman year. Then I spent only 3 years in undergrad, and then I come to Harvard, and it's awesome because I have an awesome advisor I work with, and so I get some research out and stuff. And I think that like at the time, I read every little like cool thing you did. I was like so proud of, and I was like, okay, great. Now I have it. Like I did some projects, and then like my advisor would let me work on my own instead of just getting projects from him, and I like thought that was the coolest thing ever. So like I used to like be much more like, yeah, I'm working on my own. But at some point you realize like you're going to spend the rest of your life studying physics and like working on this. You got to know it really well, not just be like fortunate that you have enough papers that you could graduate or whatever. So essentially, at some point, once I got this Hertz fellowship, and like 2 years into the program, and I knew I had 5 years to work on this. Like things like academic freedom don't mean as much in hindsight as much that it seemed cool at the time. Basically, I know that I need a lot of people to learn from, and it's been kind of like a whirlwind experience where you happen to write a couple papers and they happen to just like align in some way that like cool people are citing you and things like that. But in the long run, I know that there's much more that I have to like prepare myself for. So I'm still mostly like learning more though than just like producing stuff. And it's fun when you like have the ability to do that, because first of all with the fellowship, and then also with the fact that I had some papers going out, that you can not worry about like this project is what say my advisor has been working on and I'm only working on this, even though in practice it's easiest to get people to work with you because they want to work with your advisor on that topic. Mm-hmm. But there's just like it's very humbling to go to grad school and realize that this is what you want to prepare yourself for. So
tell us about your current research.
Okay, so my current research. So we agreed that like I'd say what I do, and then like she'd say that's not clear enough, and then she'd like we could change.
I'm not a physics person,
So I want to emphasize that I'm very, very lucky that I work with Andrew Strominger, because essentially even like, so in physics you get very attached to the things that you think of without being told. And the question is whether or not like you would ever even be thinking about it without somebody else or whatnot. So what I study is this connection between some formal aspect in quantum field theory where you're looking at very low energy radiation. So I'm like taking a basketball and like bouncing it like really, like I don't know if I could do that like slowly. I'm just like thinking like very like low oscillations, low frequency oscillations. And then so you imagine that you have different things are interacting with each other. So like we connect that to some gravitational wave boundary conditions, essentially. So if I say I stand very far away from something, and some collision happens, or someone, like, I'm in a pool and someone far away is like just basically cannonballed into the pool, and then I feel the wave coming out. So essentially, you can maybe ask, like, how much do I move as a result of this person doing it? So in my microphone. So what I care about is, say, like some like black holes, like in spiraling, and like energy is radiated it through actually like kind of like the space-time is moving and you feel this gravitational wave move you. But what we care about is not just the fact that you're oscillating, like what you could see at, say, like some interferometer experiment, but also like the net amount by which you move, because that's a statement about, say, like you're saying that these degrees of freedom are how this metric behaves far away, or like actually the curvature is like the coordinate invariant statement. And so you're sitting very far away, and you say, like, how much do I move? And that's a statement about the types of boundary conditions you have, and we're formally relating it to this. So to put it back in more, I guess.
Non-physics language.
So it's like, okay, so you imagine, like, okay, I'm something really heavy or something. I'm, like, jumping around. Essentially, I'm more like I'm, like, collapsing in on myself, or some way that I'm losing stuff. So maybe, like, if I was, like, throwing or spraying some bottled water, I don't know, like, I'm getting rid of something. Now, my energy is going out into like what I'm actually shaking. So that's the fact that you can hear me talking to you is like the sound wave, hitting your ears. So similarly, in this situation, instead of you're thinking about it going through a medium, you're actually thinking about this guy like bending space and time. So like I'm on a trampoline, I'm bouncing, and somebody sitting really far away is going to move a little bit. So then what I care about is when you're at this edge of the trampoline, maybe that's not good because it's actually like pinned down, but how much do you get like moved by? So say I'm a detector over here. Something happens over there, do I like move a little bit, or do I basically move back and forth till something happens and I stay? So what I care about is like this net amount you move by, because that's a statement that somehow any process is going to kind of shift things around by a certain amount, and that shifting around is a statement about the boundary conditions that we can then relate to these symmetries and more formal aspects.
Okay, you all got that right. So
I don't know. I can try to.
So we have a lot of students here. So would the students in the room please stand up?
Okay.
All of you. Don't be shy. Don't worry, I'm not going to quiz you. Okay, all the students. Okay, so a big shout out to our students here. Thank you for coming. You can sit down. So now, if you want to ask a question, any of the students? Question? Yeah, go ahead.
Over. Legacy.
Hello, my name is Reagan Robertson, and I'm in the 10th grade, and I actually have a lot of questions. I have to figure out which one I want to ask first. Yeah, how did you like get into the field of physics so young?
So, I think that when you go to university, you actually have a lot of people who want to encourage like the next generation to work with you. So having the project like the airplane got me into like working with aerospace companies, and that was probably more not difficult, but like it needed a bit of that like flying and aviation experience. But I think for starting in physics, it's pretty much just like a teacher probably at the university level, and at high school sometimes you can work with people at universities. And that's to get into research. But to study physics on your own, there's a lot of good resources online even, where if you just want to get that background. Like I would say that oftentimes being a little bit more prepared before you actually need it will make it so that things are a lot easier to understand when you're in the course, and can actually help you a lot more than, like for instance, just being prepared for a career in science is somehow better than saying everybody has to go into like a career in science. Because if you're there and you're just as good as anybody else because you've done that little bit of preparation, then like you're hitting the ground running and you can go into it. So I would say like it's finding somebody maybe at the university level who does research to kind of get you guided, and then just like learning some more than they expect you to know, so that then the conversation keeps going. It's like, but you can there's so many resources online. It's like that's probably how I would do it. But I was lucky at MIT basically. Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions from our? Okay, I'll take two more now, and then we'll come back to you. Go ahead. Yeah.
Who inspired? Okay, well, we'll do both of you guys. So, who inspired me to do science? So, I wanted to. It wasn't so much a person. I think it was more like engineering was something that like my family respected and stuff growing up. Like they thought. I mean, I was kind of encouraged that like that was something cool, and it was cool. Like like rocket ships and stuff like that. Like you visualize. And so I was interested in aerospace in that sense. But then a lot of the people who were running the aerospace companies that I admired kind of also admired physicists. And so it was more like, at some point, I think especially with like getting waitlisted at MIT, I was kind of like, at first I just wanted to maybe work for one of these aerospace companies, and then I wanted to like either run it or something. You know, I wanted more. And the way that they admired these like physicists, and also physics was on its own very interesting. You have this autonomy. That drove me into it. So the people who inspired me weren't like physicists that I looked up to wanting to be like. It was actually more like Jeff Bezos and like Elon Musk, who like they admired physics. And I had admired them before because I wanted to like work for them, and then I was like, no, I could do more. And I went towards what they also liked, if that makes sense.
Okay, one more.
Yeah.
Hello, my name is Perpetual, and I'm a senior at Bell Multicultural High School. And my question to you is, what were some obstacles that you faced or that almost prevented you from building your plane, if there were any at all, and how did you overcome it?
So I would say that with the airplane kit, the obstacles were not so much during like the build process, but more because of the fact that like, so you have the exact same kit plane, and then you're making modifications onto it. And those modifications are motivated by the fact that there are other people building the same kit plane and they're crashing. So there were like 13 deaths. And I had built this plane for my dad to fly in it. So it's more of an emotional, like the struggle is a little bit of getting like someone in the FAA to sign off on it. So like the MISO inspector is coming in. Those are struggles, but I think at the time I was too naive to really like realize like that they're not going to sign this off, you know, or something. Like I was confident, or naive and or confident about like the fact that this would work out. I put the time in and stuff like that. So the obstacle would have been more of an emotional one there. Now, after building the plane, not getting into undergrad, like that's an obstacle where it's like, what can I do? Because there's nothing that you can, I change this and then that happens, because they make a decision and that's it. So like that was something that was more like, you know, like I got to prove myself. But I think that the biggest obstacles that are like difficult to overcome are not the ones where it's like I need to put the effort in to do something. It's more like when is something going to click? You don't have control over like what you're going to figure out, or like when something is just going to like. And so you need to have the motivation to that, like what you're doing now, if you're studying or if you're working on something that might not be like what you want to eventually work on, that it's going to help you get to that stage, so that you like still put in that effort. And I think that's like the biggest obstacle that I've had. And it's not, that wasn't so much with the kit, because you literally have like kind of like this like big like book of pictures of like what to do and everything, and you have other builders and whatnot. But basically, the biggest obstacles are basically not knowing if the effort you're putting in now is going to pay off, and believing in that.
Just a slight change in tack. So in how many women are there in the PhD program in physics at
There's
Harvard?
a lot more than you might think. I mean, this is the thing, is like, you know, faculty-wise, we have, like Lisa Randall is like in phenomenology, same like department as us, but also sub-department, so I'm thinking high energy physics. And so she's a role model there. But like my like advisor, I was the, like when I started working with him, I was the only girl that was working with him in the time that I knew that I was working with him. But now like everybody else after that is like a female. So we have like Anna, Monica, Angelica, me. I'm like the senior one. Not really. I mean, it doesn't matter. And then another girl who's just starting, and I mean, we have like maybe I'm missing one, but like 6 or like Lily. Yeah.
6 out of?
So we have like 6 all working for Andy. Like I mean, like this just happened after us. So like it varies so much, and this is the thing where it's like you want to be good at what you do. You don't want to care about who somebody else or like what gender they are or like whatever is going on. So I think what happens is that, you know, depending on the person, like maybe you want to be like the only girl working with something. I mean, I don't know, like that could be a thing. Or you could want to be with other ones. So I think that sometimes like things will like cycle like that, but also it's just like such a small population size. You're randomly sampling. You're gonna like draw different numbers at a time. So right now we actually have quite a lot, which is awesome.
You
so
do?
it's great.
Well, that's good, because we have a chart
But yeah,
up there.
statistics-wise is not
Yeah,
very good.
statistics-wise, because generally there are only 20% of undergraduate and graduate students in physics are women.
Yeah. So in undergrad, it's
And
just
the numbers actually for faculty are even worse, because only 11% of faculty in physics are women.
The
So
faculty numbers are a lot less. It cycles in and out. I'm not sure if it's also because Harvard might be like
Definitely.
Good. Like, so imagine it's like, say you were encouraging women into a field, and then like they try really hard because maybe there is this like preconception that there are fewer of us, so then we're working really hard to show that we aren't just like lucky to be picked. We're like, you know, and then we get drawn to really good institutions, say, or like, I mean, I think that I might be biased by the fact that I go to an institution that knows that there's no difference in, like, you know, like, I mean, well, a lot of institutions say it, but Harvard is also somewhere like we want to work at. So if say there's a limited pool and we all want to go there and we're just as equally qualified and there's a smaller number of us applying, you know, if like half the people who get in are female because we're just as good, but there's fewer people applying maybe, or, you know, like you're in that pipeline, like that's how things get worse off and worse off. Like the earlier you can fix the pipeline, the better, because there's no reason why like people who are younger, like kids, have to think that they can't go into something. And I think just like starting at the lower age range is much more useful because, you know, once you get to the level of like PhD or undergrad, like you're going to be prepared just as well as anybody else. But how did you get there? And also, if you're in a class, do you feel like you're at the top of your class or whatnot? And some of that isn't so much that you're like naturally better at it, but maybe you had more like mathematics like in your high school, say, that makes it so that things are easier because like you know how to just like say like, oh, this is the same integral I've done, but now like these variables mean something, right? So it helps to have like kind of the toolkit ahead of time. And I think that that could be something that's biasing things a bit more so than anything that's actually actively done by people who are in like the field.
Yeah. So what's next for you after your PhD?
In academia, this is what happens. So you do your PhD, and then you go into like what's called a postdoc, which basically means you can like think about whatever you want to think about, but you're still kind of like, it's no, bohemian's the right word. It's almost like being like a starving artist, but not really starving. I mean, like this is just compared to what you could be making if you like, you know, that you could be hired by some like quant.
But Jeff Bezos wants to hire. Right?
No,
he wrote to you, right?
So I mean, like, so when I was 14, I sent this like video when I, with the build of the airplane, and I was like, suborbital's cool, but I'm taking you to Mars, and then I got flown out to Blue Origin to visit it at the time, and so there was this like open letter, and I guess when I got interviewed by Ozzy, they might have actually bothered him again, and I guess he said something nice, which is very sweet, but I think anybody who, like, if you want to contribute to research, the way to do it is in academia. And maybe it's not the same for, say, computer science or like bioengineering, because like in that situation, there are like companies that are like making products and also have a research end of it, and so that's great. But for theoretical physics, it's pretty much you're at some university, because the Bell Labs isn't like, there's not a thing so much like that for state of high energy theory. There's nothing like that. So you know, you basically go to a postdoc, you go to professorship, but the goal isn't to be a teacher, the goal is to contribute. And for me, like as much as I got some attention, I'm just fortunate to be working with people I've been working with, and I need to like learn more and do something. And that's the whole thing, like do something that other people find cool, not just me, because you can always get in your own head and like love what you do, but you know, if it's just new to you and not new to anybody else, who cares? So it's postdoc, and then it's academic route, hopefully.
Because I'm going to ask you a non-academic question. Unlike most millennials, you are not on social media, right? Twitter, Snapchat, Instagram.
You're on Snapchat?
You're on Snapchat?
No, I'm not. No.
So, why is that?
Okay, so I think it started out combination of when I was in high school. I guess that's when like Facebook was starting. I don't know, like I didn't have like that many friends that I'd be like talking to them on Facebook, and then also I somehow convinced. No, there was a part of it though where it's like my parents are lawyers, and they convinced me that like I would not want to have anything regrettable on online, so that like later I could like run for. And I don't want to run for office, but like, you know, type of thing where it's like you have nothing like on you, like no dirt that they're gonna be able to pull up because it never went away. You know, like so the type of fear. And also I mean I practically it's like, if you aren't going to talk to me in person or like sit with me at like a lunch table, like why am I going to be your friend on Facebook? You know, like I didn't know that many people except for the people in my high school, so it didn't seem to make that much sense. And then of course you can feel better about yourself because like I'm not being distracted, but in practice you can get distracted in anything. So it's like, you know, like whatever you're doing. So it started like that, and then at some point, like when people like start like fake accounts and stuff, you know how difficult it is to like remove, like say that somebody is pretending to be you and they're not you, and then like if you don't have an account to report it because you can't see it, so it's like it's actually a funny channel. So at that point you're kind of like, now I'm cool because I'm not on Facebook, right? Like, and so I mean, I think that it's a strange. I'm surprised at the level at which, maybe not, Facebook is less surprising, but like the level at which like you use your smartphone to like get into your room at a hotel. Like that's cool that people have adapted that much. And at some point I probably might need to switch to having a smartphone because I just have a flip phone right now. But for social media,
so you don't
I'm not trying to, I don't want to like, if I were trying to sell myself, it would make sense. You have wonderful like connection to people. But I think that there's a level of presumption that if you really think about like, they think, I mean like that you think that anything you share, everybody's going to want to hear is a little bit, I mean, in hindsight, if you like take a step back, it's a little bit interesting that that it is like that. It's like you're gonna take a photo of like what you're doing right now, and then someone's gonna be like,
you don't have to convince me. I'm not a millennial, but I'm looking at
no,
all
I don't.
kids
No,
out
but
there.
no, come on.
And
It's
I'm
not
just
just
wondering.
millennials. Everybody says millennials do this,
True.
millennials do that.
That is
Like there are a lot of
no, the parents on
non-millennials
Facebook. That's
on
where the millennials
Facebook
are.
and doing all that. I mean, it's just don't blame us. Yeah.
Right,
No, it doesn't really serve that much of a purpose for me. I mean, I think the one thing that it does do is if in academia you often go to different countries and so you're separated out from each other, and there I guess you're connecting with people. But it's a little bit, yeah, it's just a strange dynamic when you're not on it the whole time to see how people like completely connect on that and then they don't talk as much. And yeah, I never was on it, so I just don't need it. But it's not saying that it's not a good thing. Yeah.
It's not a good thing.
No, I'm not saying that. No, I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that.
Okay, so I'm going to open it up to some questions on social media or anything else.
I guess he's...
Yeah? Well, that's okay.
Everybody can ask questions.
Wait, what was my question again? Oh, yeah. Like, how long did it take you to do the plane that you made?
It's like 22 months, like 2,200 hours. So this was at the end of my elementary school into first year of high school. And so I had a lot more time there because elementary school is a lot less work, even if you think it's a lot of work, than it is when you go to like high school or college.
Okay. Welcome to.
Okay. Hi, my name's Katie Sanchez. So, well, first of all, I want to congratulate you for everything that you have done. Like, to me, like, it seems amazing because I'm just like, not everyone could do it. Like, some people believe that they can, but it looks like you have proved them wrong that you can. And, well, right now in school, we are talking about creativity, right? And we're arguing about it, if it should be taught or, like, talked about in for students.
Yeah.
And my question to you is that how or did you use creativity in order to build that plane? And if it is, then what would you say that creativity makes an individual, and if it's a part of the circle of life?
Okay, so I would say that the creativity is going beyond the plans. So I think sometimes what happens, it's like having a structure like in a sonnet or something, give a certain number of syllables per line and a rhyme structure. Like, so you can be creative because you have some sort of constraints. So you know you're building this kit, and then you have to make some modifications to maybe make it safer. So you can be creative, but you're inspired by something that's like straightforward in some sense. So it played a role there. I think in theoretical physics is very kind of random. So the one thing about something like, I think it is kind of art-like in the sense that it's not just a straightforward, do this computation, and then at the end you'll be done and you'll have something. You don't know what you're going to get, so it's very nonlinear. In the sense that you put a lot of time into study, or you put a lot of time just like randomly working towards something, and then the time that it takes you to actually do something interesting is normally very quick, and sometimes it can be very quick and completely almost like surprising. So you often surprise yourself often in like the fact that you like can't believe you didn't know this, or you can't believe like how like you figured something out now that you couldn't figure out for like a long time before. So I think that creativity, if you want to talk about being taught in schools, it's more something that should be encouraged than taught. Because I think that everybody, if you're allowed to just say what you want to say or think, then I think that people are naturally creative. Because if you're not just repeating what someone else has said, then you're going to come up with something new. So the question is, I guess, the environment that like lets you do that, or like is open to maybe more than like a standard channel of something. I think that's important. And I mean, I think everybody thinks they're original. The question is, like, you know, how do you like harness that, or like learn how to kind of extract something that you in particular are maybe like more aligned towards.
Okay, we have another question. I think it's.
Yeah, my name is Marcus Freitas. I'm from Brazil, and I teach. I'm a professor in Brazil.
Cool.
And you said one thing that really struck me.
Okay.
You said that you want to go into academia, not to teach, but to contribute.
Okay.
So I want to know. I like what you said. I really do. But my question is actually two.
Yeah.
one, what inspires you? And two, how do you see the world in the coming years, like 10 years from now?
Wait, like my world or like the
Your
world?
Yeah. Yours and the real one. Thank you.
Okay. So what I was saying with academia and teaching is just sometimes like you have people who say like they want to grow up and be a teacher, and that's a very different connotation than like they be wanting to do some other profession. And so the funny thing about academia with theoretical physics is that like you go into teaching, but the teaching is somehow less emphasized. But what I loved about MIT, for instance, so say you go to undergrad, some places will have like your grad students doing the sections, so you have a lecture which is kind of like someone standing there presenting material, and then you have more of a discussion type thing. MIT, we had like Nobel laureates doing our recitation sections, so it was very cool that it was like someone who like knew it inside and out, just there to talk to you about what you're learning. And at some other places, it's a bit more like this grad student just learned it last semester, and now they're going to teach you. So for me, I enjoy explaining things that I understand well, but I wouldn't. So that's where it's fun to do theoretical physics, say, because then if you teach something, you often get a chance to teach like stuff related to your research. Like my advisor had a course basically on this like research program that we've been working on, which is cool because it's definitely very far away from being like a standard curriculum that you would have at like especially undergrad level. So it's not so much that like I just haven't taught yet in grad school because I wanted to know more before I was teaching graduate courses, and the time commitment is more favorable towards teaching something kind of where you're learning a bit but not where you're learning at all, like when you're teaching it. So for me, I mean, I would like to get a good postdoc, say that's the first thing in like a year or two when I graduate, probably a year from now. And then it's 3 or 5 years of that, and then it's junior faculty. And the thing about it, though, is that, so you get these titles, essentially, and maybe you get more money a little bit, but like, you know, along the way. But the point of it isn't so much like getting a PhD is required, it's necessary, but it's not sufficient. So it's like you can have a PhD and you can still not do something that you like is satisfying or like, you know, makes you like, yes, I'm helping somebody else instead of just like I'm learning stuff in the field. And so it's very, like, even though I can say the generic like timeline of where I'll probably have to end up being because like my funding will be around for this, and so then I'll be at this stage, and I'll have this many years of funding, and then I'll be at that stage because otherwise I won't have a job. So like you kind of have some sort of outline of where you're going to be, like with some cap on the amount of years you can have before you get to the next level, because you won't be at the next level unless you like are done by that time. But the whole point is there's the research that you end up getting to do, and I think that it's a little bit like, I can't say exactly what that's going to be because I need to like know more, or like, and the things that you figure out are kind of surprising to you still, so you don't know exactly what's going to be on top of that basic profile of like where you will end up, but what you'll be doing or how you'll feel about it is very variable. So, and then I don't think I want to think about the real world 10 years from now. You know.
Okay, we'll take one more question. Go ahead.
What is your research process like currently?
So it changes up a lot. So basically what happens is that you can go into different modes that you can get caught in very easily. It's like studying or like actually just working on something. So I would say the way it started for, like, say, look at, like, let's do grad school because it's like you start with classes and you're in the classes and you're like, I want to contribute. So then you work with an advisor. You often have some older grad students that you start working with, and it's typically like, it's a problem that isn't too, like, that's the nice thing about having someone who's like a mentor is that like you can do the problem and you can start thinking about new applications. So it's very much like things that you might think, because you maybe look at like NOVA and you're like, oh, we're going to like solve quantum gravity. Like basically you have these big questions that you think, this is why I go into the field. And that's why you go into the field. But in practice what you're doing is normally something like rather small, and you're like, oh, really, like, this is all I need to do this? But then the reason, like, why you're doing it is important, and something that like you build up an understanding over time. Like, why is this computation mean this? Like, that's the type of thing. So oftentimes when you're in the mode where you're like actively just doing a research project, you're trying to think about, looking like the archive, say, is like where papers are published but not like peer reviewed. It's just like once you finish something and you're good with it, you put it online. So you can see what comes out and you can look through what other people are doing. And so oftentimes you build up not expertise, but like a stronger background in a particular research line when you're actually doing new research, and you try to just make connections or relate what someone else does to what you do, and like kind of it's a gradual process, but it's often like very problem solving, like, because you know, like, if I can just figure, like, do this integral, then I'll be fine. And so it's thinking like a particular problem but a lot, and it's fun like that. But then in hindsight you realize I'm very narrow right now, And it's great for getting a PhD, but it's not what you want. So then you spend a lot of time where you wake up and you're just like literally either sitting in on mathematics courses or going on NPTEL, like there's this Indian Institute of Technology have a lot of mathematics, like undergrad or grad like level good programs that you can just watch straight through courses. Say you missed out on some PD stuff. They also have like ICTP has that. So like you can just be studying a lot. But the nice thing about grad school is you have like all the time in the world. So it's a strange level where you know you have to do something, but at any given time you don't have to do like anything. So it's like you have to manage your own time like that. So I'd say it goes on and off between I have something I'm thinking about right now and I know I have the tools to do it. I'm just going to go crank it out, and you can be staying up all night doing it. Or it can be I'm stuck on something, so I'm going to learn something, and I'm like literally just like going through courses and like watching like these mathematics major courses that I wouldn't have taken, just so I have that background. So it varies a lot.
Okay, so we'll actually really one last question at the back.
Yeah.
I think
Thank you so much. Hi, Sabrina. Thank you for inspiring us. I'm a biochemist from Chile, so
Very
I'm very
cool.
happy to meet you. So Madame Lagarde in her curtain raiser speech, she said that the next Mark Zuckerberg can come from anywhere, not just Harvard, with the right investment in education, but anywhere in the world. So, or the next Elon Musk or next Sabrina.
Oh.
What can we do in science education so that we have more Sabrinas?
Okay, so
great question.
the question is, do you want more Sabrinas? We'll see in like 10 years. Do you want more Sabrinas? I would say it's got to be more like mathematics or indoor science preparation at a younger age, because I think that oftentimes, like, so say you want to do coding, maybe that's better. I mean, I don't do coding, so I can't really, but I can say that this attitude, you started at MIT, and you're among like a lot of kids who want, like, they say straight off the bat, like, I'm not here to graduate, I want to drop out and start a company. And they have like 10 years of like coding experience, because you can do that at home or at high, you know, like in your free time in high school, like go online and learn. So like that, the fact that somebody can come in at where you're starting at, and they're your peer, taking the same course as you, and they have that much more on you, it's intimidating. Just because like you can catch up to somebody who maybe has like one more year of like AP classes or something than you. But if they've really been doing this for a long time, like can't we start earlier so that you're also one of those people? So I think that that's more. When it comes to like preparation and stuff like that, like having that confidence when you're going in and you know that you're just as prepared as everybody else, if not more, makes it so that then like you're motivated to keep performing, say, in academia, like in the academic setting maybe. I'm not sure when it comes to if there's a little bit of also like luck with like finding something that you can actually like do when you're starting a company, say, versus in academia is more of a route. So like if I wanted to go into physics, there's a very clear like, okay, I need to know a lot of mathematics, I need to know a lot of physics. When can I learn that? Probably a lot earlier for the mathematics than you'd think. Because basically when you learn, well, my experience has been in physics, it's lots of levels of, oh, we were kind of lying to you before, and now this is the right way of thinking about it. And, so it's slightly funny, but like then in the end, when you get to this level where they're not lying to you, you'd have no clue what actually relates to like the world that you live in with like force diagrams and things like that. So it's good and bad at the same time. But in mathematics, at least the experience I've had is like it's always just like proof, theorem, like and very much like truth that is like told to you. So it's not like you're relearning that, oh, this was an assumption we were making. So it's a type of knowledge. I think that that's something that you can probably have much more of when you're younger, and that's a good tool, but it's not necessarily useful for a lot of different fields. So I would say increase that side of things at a much younger age, so that once you go to undergrad, you're not like, you don't think that you're at the bottom of like this pool. Like you think that you're just as prepared, if not more, than other people, so that you can hit the ground running with those courses. And I think that just somehow that having that confidence, like that you know you started with the right stuff, is going to make you go a lot further, just because you're not like, is this worth it for me, when this guy's been doing this so much longer than me, or you know. Like.
Lots of useful tips there. We have to end, and
Okay.
before we end, just want to say, please join me in giving a very warm thank you to Sabrina.